Okay, is the file visible to you?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you recall, yesterday, there seems to be an echo here. Okay. If you recall, there's an issue over here. Are you hearing an echo or is it just me?
I think
Yes,
it's
you're
Isaac.
audible, madam. We
I
can
think
hear you.
Isaac should mute himself.
What was that suggestion again in the chat box?
There's echo sound.
Yes, there's an echo sound. Let me just stop recording first and then I'll have to. Now is there an echo? Isaac, could you please mute
I
yourself?
hope one of us can open his microphone.
Now, is there an echo now? Isaac, please mute
Yes.
yourself.
Yes, madam.
Yes, there's echo.
I would request everyone to please mute yourself first. Isaac, your mic is still on. Starting again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Still there? Anyway, I think we'll go ahead. And I request everyone to please put yourselves on mute. Right, now the issue is sorted out, it seems. Right, let's come back. We wasted 5 minutes on that. If you remember, we had looked at the process of management and all the functions of management in brief, and we had started to look at the different functions one by one. Okay, so we talked of the planning function, we also looked at the organizing function, and now today we are going to discuss the third function of management, which is staffing and directing. Okay, I hope the file is visible to all of you. Right, so what is staffing and directing? Now, we know that people are the principal assets of an organization. Whatever factors of production are there, whatever inputs, whatever resources are required as far as any unit, any organization is concerned, people are the most important asset. People are the most important resource. But what kind of people? Please mute yourself. Tanya, please mute yourself. I request all the learners to please ensure that your mics are on mute because there's a technical issue. We are, hearing echoes when the mics are on. Okay, so what kind of people are a resource? Is everyone, are all the people, all variety of people available in the in the in the communities who want to work in our organization? Are they all going to be an asset? No. Some kind of people are going to be an asset to the organization. Other people are not going to be an asset to the organization. So in general, if we speak, talented, devoted, dedicated people who are committed to their work, who are hardworking, who take initiatives, who are ethical in their thinking, and a whole lot of other adjectives. Those kind of people are important assets to an organization in general. Specifically, if you speak about some particular task, some relevant, some specific task which is to be accomplished for the achievement of organizational goals, specifically we might need people who have some relevant education in that particular field, knowledge, technical expertise, experience, skills, right? So those kind of people would be possibly suited to that particular kind of work that we're talking of. So the staffing function is that function which deals with placing the right person on the right position in the organization, right? And for us to place the right person in the right position, we've already created a background for that. We've already created an organization for that, where we can understand, we have been able to fix what requirements, what kind of person is to be placed in what position in the organization. Okay, so between organizing and staffing, we work out a small description, which is called a job description, of what kind of people are going to be placed in what kind of positions in the organization. Okay, and staffing helps us in placing people in the organization. Okay. Right. What is staffing? Let us try to define staffing. Staffing as defined by management is an action hiring the personnel by reviewing their competence, knowledge, and providing them particular job roles accordingly in the organization. It includes the procedure of filling the available position in the organization with the correct personnel at the correct job at the correct time. So staffing is a function which basically looks at the requirement of the organization as far as people, personnel, human resources concerned, and then tries to recruit, select, and train that person, and then place that person in the organization at that position. So what are the functions of staffing? Staffing procures qualified personnel, tries to recruit, both the points are the same. Recruitment of right people is done in staffing. Enhancing job satisfaction is also an important function of staffing, and ensuring that growth of the organization takes place through people. That is what is done by staffing. Okay. Now, what does staffing exactly mean? Number one, let's look at what is the importance of staffing. Why do we need staffing at all? And why do we need staffing as a separate function, as a distinct function apart from the other management functions? Why cannot it be a simple job? Staffing is important because, as we discussed earlier, people are the most important resource in the organization. So it is very important, given the structure, given the goals, given whatever is to be achieved in the organizations, to ensure that right people enter the organization. These right people should be skilled enough, knowledgeable enough, expert enough, educated enough, experienced enough to handle the requirements of that job. Okay. So how can we divide the importance of staffing into a couple of points? One, efficient and effective management functions. Now, we have created the organization. We have even decided, we started from, where did we start? We started from establishing the mission of the organization according to the vision of the founder people. we started by deciding what are going to be the objectives, why are we in business, what are we going to achieve in the short term and the long term. That is when we started, that is when we formulated the objectives. We also looked at the internal strengths and things of the environment, and then also looked at the environment to find out what are the opportunities and what are the threats, and then decided subsidiary plans to achieve the objectives. Those subsidiary plans were called strategies. We also, in the process of dividing the strategies and the objectives into small parts, we created the standing use plans and the single use plans in the organization. On the basis of whatever plans we had made, we tried to create an organization, right? During the creation of the organization, we decided what kind of division there is going to be in the organization. Are we going to have regional divisions? What kind of functions are going to be there? What would be the important activities in the organization? Who is at what position? What kind of work will be done? All that has been already decided. But who is going to implement all these? The implementation part, the doing part, the activity part, the achievement part is going to be done by people. So whatever management functions are there in the organization, it is going to be done by people. So efficient and effective management functions can only happen when people are efficient and effective and people are suitable to do those jobs, right? So first is the management functions. If they need to be effective and efficient, the right kind of people have to be there in the organization. Second point, also optimum utilization of human resource. Again, you might get the right kind of people in the organization, but how do you utilize them optimally? How do you ensure that they are pressurized enough to do the job properly, but not pressurized to an extent where they're not able to do their jobs? So that balance has to be maintained. The maintenance of that balance is taken care of by the staffing function. Personal development to meet future human resource requirements. If the organization is of a small size today, the organization, obviously the vision and the mission of the organization is to ensure that the organization grows. And when the organization grows, there will be more requirements for good people. How would you get them? You cannot always hire them from the outside. You cannot always pick people from the recruitment market, what's that, employment market, and put them in the organization and expect that they'll do their work. The people in the organization make the organization what it is. They are the ones who run the organization. So they have to be there in the organization for a long time if the organization has to achieve its own growth objectives. So people have to be developed, from bringing them into the organization to taking them to a place where they are so experienced in the organization that they can guide and train future human resource personnel who join the organization. Next importance is maintaining staff morale and motivation. Just give me a second. I just need to know what file it is. Okay, yeah. What is the difference between morale and motivation? There is very slight difference. These words can be used to supplement each other also, in place of each other also. But in general, motivation, when you're talking of motivation, we're talking of individuals. When we're talking of morale, we're talking of groups. Motivation is the reason behind doing a particular kind of work. Morale indicates the enthusiasm, the confidence, and the happiness which is there in the organization. Okay, so the staffing function is also responsible for people's motivation levels, the morale of the people who are working in the organization. So it's the most important function. Another important thing to talk about staffing is that this is the only function as of now which is dealing with people. Okay. Now, what are the elements of staffing? There are 2-3 elements of staffing which we'll look at. One is recruitment. So, generally people look at staffing as only recruiting people. So it's used synonymously sometimes, but staffing has other elements also. What is recruitment? Recruitment is inducing, promoting the maximum number of people to apply for a vacant position in the organization. Soliciting applications is known as recruitment. It can be internal or external, in the sense that if we have a job position which needs to be filled, we can get people from within the organization also, and we can get people from outside the organization also. Both the methods have their own advantages and disadvantages. Okay? The internal recruitment process. What is an internal recruitment process? Internal recruitment process would mean that if you have a job vacancy in the organization, you are going to appoint someone from within the organization to that job position, right? So you might pick up someone who's working in another department, or you might pick up someone who's a junior to that position to fill up that position. What is the advantage of an internal recruitment process? One, it is efficient and economical. You don't have to advertise, you don't have to invite applications, you don't have to conduct interviews. So it is efficient and economical thing. You can just pick up anyone from, not just pick up, that is the process. You can pick up a person who's suitable to fill that position and then place them in that position. It stimulates the already existing employees. Why does it stimulate the already existing employees? Because you are giving a chance of promotion, or you are placing someone to an important job role. So people might become the people who are being, transferred, and people who are being given a higher position possibly. Obviously, it cannot go, downwards. You cannot appoint a senior to do a junior's job. That will be demotivating, and that's not promotion. That is demotion. So we're not talking of that here. We're talking of the fact that whenever a junior is promoted to a higher position, because he is efficient enough to be able to handle that position and the jobs to be, and the tasks to be done at that level, that is internal recruitment. It is also possible that a person who's working in some other departments at the same level, he is transferred, and that also is an internal recruitment position to take care of a job vacancy which is very important to be filled. Okay, time required for training is less, because obviously the people who are appointed like this, they are already trained and they are already acclimatized with the environment of the organization. Chances of turnover are less because employees are familiar with the organization's rules and regulations. Why are we putting this point? Because whenever people join a new organization, sometimes they are not able to accept the environment there. They're not able to live in the culture over there. So generally turnovers happen there. Staffing also helps in improving employees' performance. The internal recruitment process. Why? Because when they, like we looked at in the human relations approach, people, when they are given some kind of a importance, if they are given an important position to handle, they would obviously start performing well. They would feel important, they'll start performing well. Job rotation leads to training of employees. When the people in the organization are transferred from one department to another department, that is called job rotation, giving them a feel of what are the other functions like. And that leads to training of employees in the organization. So these are all the advantages of internal recruitment process. The internal recruitment process, like we said, is when people from within the organization are taken away from their own place and they are made to join some other position in the organization. That is internal recruitment process. Disadvantages. There are some disadvantages of the internal recruitment process. What? Because we are not taking people, if the organization believes too much in the internal recruitment process and they do not balance it out with getting people from outside the organization, there will be no addition to the existing idea pool or culture of the organization. Okay? If there's something which is lacking, these people will be, since they are from within the organization, they are not bringing any new ideas. Limited choices, because if you solicit applications, you might get hundreds of applications. But if you look for an internal candidate, you might only have tens, maybe, options and choices. When we have a new organization, you cannot do internal recruitment because you don't have any people. So it is not suitable. This kind of recruitment process is not suitable for new organizations. And if frequent transfers take place, the productivity of employees gets reduced because they are not able to settle down in their jobs, understand what their jobs are, and start performing, because this takes some time. There is a lead time between getting into a job and actually being able to perform. So that disadvantage is there. What are the methods of internal recruitment? Like we already discussed, transfer and promotion. What happens in a transfer? In a transfer, a person is picked up from the same position in one department and is taken to some other department in the same position again. So there is no change in authority, compensation, or rank. Change of place takes place, activities takes place, task takes place. As far as promotion is concerned, in promotion, a person is picked up from a lower level of the organization and is taken to a higher level in the organization. Generally, it is just one step higher. And here the changes in the authority level, because he gets more authority, prestige changes, rank changes, responsibility changes. Okay, let's come to the second method of recruitment, which is called external recruitment. Now, you and I, we all know what is external recruitment. External recruitment is when applications for filling a vacant job position are invited from outside the organization. This could be through consultancies. This could be through print ads in the newspaper. This could be through online mediums. And generally, this kind of method is preferred when there is a huge number of job positions unoccupied. They cannot be filled from within the organization. Right? What are the advantages? Fresh and novel talent contributes in the organization. New people come in, they bring in new knowledge, they bring in new experiences, new ideas. Wide array of options are available. So when you are looking for external recruitment options, there's a lot of options available. You can have a variety of education levels. You can have a variety of criteria, and then according to that, you can put your advertisements or invite applications. Management comes across trained and qualified personnel. Trained and qualified personnel, again, it depends on the job vacancy, but yes, trained and qualified personnel are coming to the organization, and management is able to meet them, and that's a good exposure. New employees can bring in new ideas, culture, know-how, technology, techniques, expertise not existing in the organization. Okay, somewhat similar to number one, but through the external recruitment, competitive spirit also develops in the existing employees. So when new people come in the organization, there's some kind of resistance, some kind of good, healthy competition also. Now, there are certain disadvantages also to the external recruitment process. When you appoint good people from outside the organization, the people who are already existing in the organization might feel threatened, might feel resentful, and that could also lead to resignations also. That disadvantage can also be there. New employees may find it difficult sometimes to adjust to new rules, regulations, and culture, and they may come into the organization and resign and go within a few months or weeks. And it is an expensive and time-consuming process. That is why it is used only when there is a huge number of job positions available, job vacancies available. Only then this method is used. Okay, now we talked of external recruitment. Now, what are the methods of external recruitment? We have to just run through them. Direct recruitment would mean a person who comes in and they are directly recruited, okay, without any applications, without any advertisements. Casual callers, they are again people who are call to find out if there's a job vacancy, and if there's a job vacancy, the people in the organization can take them as a potential candidate for the organization. Advertising in the media, employment exchanges where they register candidates, and you can get data from there. There are agencies for placement and management consultants who can bring in applications of new people. Campus recruitment in colleges and institutes, that is what a lot of companies do. Recommendation from existing employees. If the existing employees are able to recommend someone from outside the organization and whom they feel is suitable to the organization, their application is also can be considered. Labor contractors, a lot of contract and outsourcing is done in the working area nowadays. So labor contractors and advertisement on television generally doesn't happen, but yes, can be one method. Publishing is like, we are talking of online methods of recruitment. Factory gate, again, like the casual collar, people who come to the factory gate and look for jobs, that is also one method of external recruitment, right? Okay, now the second element of staffing is selection. What was recruitment? Recruitment was getting more and more people to apply, to generate a lot of alternatives for the job vacancy at hand, for the position that needs to be filled up. Selection is looking at all these alternatives, evaluating, and then finding the best alternative, finding the best person who can be placed in that job vacancy. Okay, so selection is the process of finding the most appropriate candidate for the unoccupied job position, and there are a number of steps which involve selection. Preliminary screening could have a lot of things. It could be about how the resume has been made. It could be about the person's dressing sense. It could be about the communication skills. Anything which is easily seen, easily visible, that can help us screen out people. Any organization which has this requirement of some technical know-how, they can go in for a selection test. We can have IQ tests, we can aptitude tests, personality tests, trade tests in particular fields. There's something called stress test also. But that's an interview, stress interview. Anyway, so preliminary screening is the preliminary things which you can see. Selection test, it's up to the organization to conduct a selection test or no, especially for academics and technical knowledge organizations, you need to have a selection test. Then comes the interview, which can be about a lot of things, which can be about the personality of the individual, again, the technical knowledge that person has, or the experience and the skill set that they are going to bring to the organization. Sometimes there is a references and background check also, specifically where the background is important, finding the background is important, like the armed forces, like these kind of organization, intelligence forces, or some other top level organizations where you need to be assured of the background of the individual. Selection decision is taken after this. It could be a committee, it could be a single person. It all depends on the organization's selection process. In some cases, medical examinations are done. Again, this is very, very important as far as armed forces are concerned, or some other forces are concerned, some other organizations are concerned, where for example, aviation, they have to have a medical examination. Okay. Then the job offer is made, some kind of a letter given to the selected candidates that you are offered a so-and-so position. They have to accept it, and then the contract of employment or the actual appointment letter is given. So all these come under the selection process. Okay. Now, the third element of staffing. So there are three elements that we are talking of. One was recruitment, second was selection, and third is training and development. Are you with me?
Yes, we are with you, Doc.
Yes, we are following.
Yes,
We are following.
we're following.
Yeah, we are with you.
I
Yes,
wanted to
ma'am.
share. Yes, thank you. I wanted to share something with you earlier. It just slipped my mind. You look at any of the big bosses of all the the major companies in the world, big ones. I'm taking those examples because you are sitting in one part of the world, I'm sitting in another part of the world, so we may possibly be able to relate to these people. If you look at Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google, or Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple, they have joined these organizations, still working with these organizations. They have joined their organization long back. So Sundar Pichai joined Google in 2004. How did he become the CEO? Through internal recruitment. Okay. Tim Cook joined Apple in 1998. It's a long time back. And today he is the CEO. So how did he come to that CEO position? Because of internal recruitment. Okay. Now, coming back again to the topic at hand, training and development. What is training and what is development? Training means preparing the employees with the knowledge, competence, and skill required to perform the job well. This includes educating the employee in handling new technology, software, product-related training, procedures, processes newly adapted by the organization. Like, for example, if you have a technical person who is supposed to, you have recruited a team of technical people who are supposed to sell the product in the showrooms. So what are you going to teach them? You have to train them about the product. You have to train them about the technology which is being used. You have to train them about how the product functions. You have to train them about what procedures they are supposed to follow when booking an order, right? All these things. So what are these? These are going to be elements of training. Now, again, as the other elements were there, training also depends from organization to organization. It will happen according to the needs of the organization. The second thing is development. They are all training and development are related, but still they are distinct. Development means improving the overall work potential of the employee. Focus of development is on the personal growth of an employee. Does that mean that training does not lead to development? No. It means that there are certain activities which are exclusively developmental activities, but training also leads to development. So let us look at the differences. Let us look at the fact that how training is different from development. Any organization is going to follow, definitely they would need training. They have to use different trainings to ensure that their employees are doing their work properly. But not all organizations would possibly think about development of the workers. But big organizations, good organizations who are concerned about their employees, they would definitely think about development. So that means that training and development are two aspects which are related. We will look how they are related right now. But majorly, training is more widely used. Development is lesser seen. Nowadays, it is seen. Otherwise, not many organizations believe in the development of their employees. Let's look at the differences between training and development. Okay. Like we said, when we are improving the knowledge levels, the skills, the expertise of individuals, it is called training. Development is the process of learning and growth. Training is job-oriented process. Development is a career-oriented process. So possibly a person who's been trained in a particular kind of work might take up some other developmental course which is being offered by the organization, and which is possibly about positive attitude, changing. It's like a seminar maybe on developing a positive attitude or becoming more motivated. Those are developmental activities. Training is short duration. Development is a long-term process. Training enables the employee to perform the job better, but development basically ensures the overall growth of the employee. Training is generally on technical skills. Development is on human and conceptual skills. Level of training is generally at the lower level. Training is required because they have to do technical jobs. They have to do procedural jobs. They have to understand processes, manual things that have to be done. And development is basically for everyone, but mainly managers, because they need to grow in conceptual skills and human skills. Training is narrow and development is wider. If you look at it in another manner, training is a part of development and development is a wider concept. Is that clear to you? Do we understand the difference between training and development?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now,
Yes, it's clear.
So what kind of methods of training are followed by organizations? Generally, two types of methods are followed. One is on-the-job training, the other is off-the-job training. On-the-job training is when the employee is sitting or performing their work. That kind of training is provided. Whatever training is provided there is called on-the-job training. So for workers, it is apprenticeship training, when they are learning how to handle a particular equipment, how to do some manual work, that is apprenticeship training. For students, it is internship training. While you're doing your course, you are supposed to work in an organization to get some experience and apply the theoretical concepts that you've learned in the organization. Job rotation is also a method of on-the-job training. How? Because you are being trained on handling different departments in different positions. That generally happens in banks. You know, the cashier, whenever you go to the bank, you will not always find the same cashier in the window. Why? Because they follow job rotation. They want everyone in the organization, in the bank, to get exposure to all the various things, work which is happening there. Coaching is in a classroom situation at the workplace. So these are all methods of on-the-job training, when the person is on the job and learning to do some new things. Off-the-job training is when the employee is required to, it is not train away, go away from his job, and then attend a conference or go for an industrial visit. This is some typing error here. I'm so sorry about this. Or maybe, learn something through a case study or a dummy school or some kind of a seminar or some kind of a group activity which is held in classes elsewhere, not in the place of the job. These are all methods of training. And how does development take place? When all these activities are conducted, and apart from these, other conceptual and human related skills are also added and taught to the people, development takes place. And when these things happen over a long period of time, development takes place. So training leads to development. Okay, along with some other elements which the organization decides as to who needs what kind of development. Right? Let us come to now the next. I think we can take a minute to get some observations on what we have covered right now in staffing and the elements of staffing, which is recruitment, selection, and training and development. Or shall we go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we said that this function is about staffing and directing together. Why are they clubbed together? Because in staffing, we get people into the organization. We are dealing with people. In directing, we are now communicating with these people. Okay? Directing is defined as the process of guiding, counseling, instructing, leading, inspiring, and overseeing people to the achievement of the goals of the organization. Got it? Whatever communication, whatever interactions, whatever relations are happening within the organizations for the purpose of achievement of the organizational goals, they can be termed as directing. But majorly, directing is a top-down approach. Direction is telling people what to do and seeing that they do it to the best of their abilities. So all managers, all supervisors, all bosses, all people who have one person or more than one person working below them at a level which is below them will be doing the directing function. So direction includes supervision, which is monitoring work, evaluating and issuing orders, evaluating the work, issuing orders, seeing that the work is being done. Directing also includes training, which is guiding and teaching various aspects of work to the subordinates. Directing also includes motivation, which is inducing, persuading, encouraging, and also disciplining and rewarding. So motivation is a sub part of directing. Direction also is directly related to leadership, wherein the superior is required to lead by example, also empathize with their people, promote the interests of the people. And communication is an integral part of directing, because all these things that are written above, they take place only through communication, which could be written, oral, symbolic, and other methods of communication. Okay, and like all other features, like all other functions of management, directing is an all pervasive and continuous activity, because you can plan, write it down, and maybe leave it for some time. You can organize in the tasks, create an organization and leave it for some time, but you cannot stop talking to people, you cannot stop instructing people, you cannot stop guiding people, training people, motivating people, and supervising people, right? So direction is a very important function which is always there in the organization. Let's come to the need for directing. Why do we direct? It's common sense, but we have to put it down in points to bring clarity when there is a need. This is not to bring clarity to everyone when there is a need. Okay, when there's a confusion, you have to direct. When you have to guide, you have to direct. Dispersion of information is to be done in time to relevant people. Who is distributing this information in the organization? Communication is an important part of directing, whether it is written or oral or any other form of communication. So all dispersal of information is done. So when you're writing down objectives, writing down strategies, jotting them down, and then downloading them to the organization, the direction function is the function which actually explains it to the people who are going to be doing that work. Okay, so it's an integral part of all the other functions. Guidance and inducing employees constantly is very important. That is why you need to direct. You have to also maintain congruency and consistency of work done by the people. That is ensured by because people can look at communications and distort them, misunderstand them, all that can happen. So directing function ensures that whatever is written down, whatever is being said, whatever is being ordered is understood by the people in a similar manner. Obviously, maintaining the morale and positive work culture is done by the direction function. And finally, what we can say is that since man is the most important resource, this resource has to be handled properly and with care. And the only function which deals with this resource is the directing function. Okay, gets work done through people is the direction function. Now, we said that the first and foremost thing that the direction function does is issuing orders. That was there in the definition. What kind of orders will lead to proper working? Orders which are unambiguous, which are very clear, easily understood, so that the subordinate knows what he or she is supposed to do. Orders should be within the authority of whom? Both the superior and the subordinate. Superior should have the authority to give an order in a particular area. And the subordinate should also have the authority to actually get into that area, not into someone else's area. Orders have to be reasonable. The orders just cannot be given haphazardly. They have to be reasonable, they have to be achievable, they have to be clear enough, they have to be within the capacity of the subordinate. And the most important thing can be that orders generally should be written, they should not be orally given. Major orders should not be orally given, because then there is no chance of distortions. Right, so this was all about the directing function. Staffing and directing. I think we'll take 2 minutes to clear our minds, evaluate what has been done right now, and then we'll come back with the next unit. We'll come back with the next unit and start afresh, start a new topic afresh, right? 2 minutes would mean 2 minutes. I'll be back in 2 minutes. You can take a break yourselves. There is no voice because I said there is going to be a 2-minute break. Okay, I'm back. I see a question here. Why is recruitment regarded as a positive process and selection as a negative process? Well, recruitment is regarded as a positive process because it is giving hope to so many people who are applying for the job vacancy. And selection is a negative process because you select only a few people and you basically reject most of the other applications. So that's a very, vague kind of a thing, but yes, recruitment is a positive process and selection is a negative process. Though from the point of view of the organization, it is going to be a positive process because they are getting new people in the organization. The slide is not on screen because I'll just start. Now, I just wanted to show you the structure of the course first, and then we'll go ahead with the presentation. So this is the structure of the course that we are doing right now. And we have completed unit number 6 just now. I wanted to show you because it should be clear in our mind as to where we're going. So we have completed unit 6 at the moment, and now we are going ahead with block 3, which is unit 7, controlling. Okay? If there's a question, Magaji, please go ahead. You can type in the chat box. I think that will be better. If you have questions in the middle of the session, I would request you to please, was typed right now, please put it in the chat box so that whenever I visit the chat box, I should be able to see it and then I would be able to attend to it. Now we are starting off with the next topic, unit 7, which is controlling function. Okay, the file is visible to everyone.
Yes, visible.
Now, what we have done till now in the syllabus is we've looked at what is to be achieved, how it is to be achieved in the form of the organization, getting people into the organization to be able to do the work which has been planned already, and then the work is implemented. Then the plan is implemented, the organization starts working towards achieving whatever goals have been identified in the beginning of the management process. Once that happens, there are bound to be some problems in the working of the organization. And even if there are no problems in the working of the organization, there has to be some method for us to understand whether we are going in the right direction, whether the organizational activities are going in the right direction towards achievement of organizational goals. So the function which ensures that the organization is going in the right direction, the function which ensures that problems are dealt with in a manner where there is not too much of a damage to the organization's resources and the organization's targets, is called as control. The controlling function, what is the controlling function? If you look at the definition, it is in an undertaking. Control consists in verifying where everything occurs in conformity with the plan adopted, with the instructions issued, and the principles established. It operates on everything, things, people, and action. This definition by Henry Fayol is a very good and simple definition. There is another definition. So let's look at the Henry Fayol's definition first. According to Henry Fayol, you have made your plans, you have instructed people to do different kinds of activities, you have established certain principles and policies in place. Now you have to ensure that these are followed by the people. And you ensure this by using the control mechanism. The second definition of control is the systematic effort by management to compare performance to predetermined standards, plans, and objectives in order to determine whether the performance is in line with these standards, and presumably in order to take any remedial action required to see that human and other resources are being used in the most effective and efficient manner possible in achieving organizational objectives. This definition by Robert J. Mockler is a very specific and a detailed definition, and I have put it down into separate phrases for you to be able to recall and remember the various parts in the definition. Now, what is the function, the control function like? How is it done? What is the process of control? Let us look at all those things. Features of control function. Like we had described the other management functions, what are the features, what are the characteristics of this control function? It is the end process. Obviously, it is all pervasive, present everywhere. It is continuous because you have to keep on ensuring that the organizational processes, the activities in the organizations are being watched over, and you have to ensure that the problems are sorted out before they lead to more damage in the organization, right? And you have to ensure that plans are followed, the policies are being followed, people are doing work as they're expected to do. So it has to be a continuous activity. Now, we call it the end process. Why do we call it the end process? We call it the end process because unless and until you do the other functions of management, you cannot control anything. So for the control function to start working, the other things should have been completed. You must have had some planning. You must have created an organization, and you must have told people to start doing their respective jobs. Once that work starts, once the implementation starts, only then you can control. But remember, like we discussed in the beginning of the functions, when we're talking of the functions of management, the functions are iterative. The control function might happen after the initial functions, but during the planning also, you can go back. These are iterative. You can possibly realize that you have to make some changes. When the control function starts working, when the control mechanism is in place, they might feel that the plan adopted has to be changed. And from there, it will go to changing of plans. Right? So this way, it is all intermingled and interrelated, all these functions of management. Control function obviously is for fixing personal responsibility. We need to find out who has gone wrong, where the mistake has happened in case, and who is responsible for the work. Flexibility has to be there because especially in the beginning of the organization, flexibility has to be there to be able to change the initial functions of management when the targets are not achieved or the objectives are not achieved. So only if there is some flexibility like this, there would be smooth functioning. If there is a rigidity as far as the control function is concerned, you would not be in a position to, the organization will not be in a position to grow, and work out things. Now, an important feature of control is emphasis on exceptions. And this term, management by exceptions, is here. So what is controlled actually in the organization? If everything is running smoothly, according to the standards which have been set, there is not much need for the control function. So if, suppose in a factory unit, the daily target of production of a particular equipment is somewhere around 10,000 units per day. If for 1 month, the production is 10,000 units and maybe more than that, the control function will not come into picture. One day after 1 month, on the 31st day, if the production of the number of units falls down to 8,000, the control mechanism comes into the picture. So the control mechanism basically runs on exceptions. Whenever there is an exception to what has been planned, to what has been thought, to what has been targeted, to what has been instructed, if there is a deviation, management function, the control function comes into picture. Another feature of control, the last one, is that obviously it is connected to all the other functions. If the other functions are not in place, control function cannot be put into place. Now, the process of control, wherever the control is happening, is generally, there are 5 steps as far as control function is concerned. One is setting performance standards. Like we discussed this factory unit, we have to set a standard that is to be achieved. So if the standard is set that the production is going to be, the capacity of per day production is going to be 10,000 units, that's a performance standard. Data will be collected on a daily basis as to how many units have been produced. That is collecting data. On a daily basis, there's going to be a comparison between the number of units produced and the performance standard set. So till the time it matches, the number of units produced is equal to or more than the performance standard which has been set, there is no issue at all. But the moment it falls down the standard set, corrective action will have to be taken. The control mechanism will come into play and find out what is the reason, why has the production fallen down to 8,000 units. If there's genuine issue, it will be sorted out. If there is some other issue, whatever, the corrective action will be taken over there, and then the feedback would be given in case it needs to be, in case the performance standard needs to be changed or some other, related work needs to be done. That would be the feedback. And this will go on in a whole cycle. Okay. This control process, this kind of would also apply to the kind of money spent. It will also apply to the kind of reports generated. It will also apply to the sales performance of the organization. So this kind of, this process will apply to any activity which is to be controlled. Okay. Now, in an organization, like we said, there are a whole lot of activities happening. So there are a whole lot of control mechanisms in place. In general, the control process is setting of the standard, setting of performance standards, collecting data, seeing if the data which is collected is, as per the performance standards which have been set. In case they are as per the standards, work will go on as usual. And in case there is some kind of deviation, there's some kind of non-compliance, corrective action will be taken. And again, the whole process will go on. This will happen in all the areas of work in the organization. But the control techniques will be different. Okay, so what type of control techniques will we have at our disposal? So there could be some techniques which could be called preventive control. There is another technique which is called detective. These are classifications. There are control techniques which can be divided into feed-forward, concurrent, and feedback controls. Again, control techniques can be divided into past-oriented control methods and future-oriented control methods. Let us look at them. Look at what do we mean by these classifications. So when you set up a control mechanism to ensure that mistakes do not happen, or mistakes are lessened in number, or problems are not generated, when you set up that kind of mechanism, it is called preventive. What would be an example of some such kind of a control mechanism? When you issue guidelines, when you make a budget to ensure that not much money is spent, only money which is allocated, only the resource which is allocated is utilized. So that's a preventive control technique. When the work is ongoing and the control mechanism ensures that they're able to find out the problem while the work is ongoing, that is a detective control technique. Now, preventive feed forward could be the similar kind of control techniques. Detective could be concurrent. So there is this similarity between the various kind of control techniques that we have. Anyway, we'll come to that. What is feed forward control techniques? Feed forward control technique, again, a budget would be a feed forward control technique. It happens before the work is started. Okay, like for example, if you work out specifications to what is to be produced, what is going to be the quality, what kind of raw material is going to be used, what is going to be the size and shape and length, and whatever specifications can be worked out for whatever we are producing in the factory unit possibly, that is feed forward control technique, because you are telling in advance as to what is to be controlled. When the control technique comes into picture when the work is ongoing, that is concurrent control technique. Like when you get a warning message, it happens to us while we're using data, right? There is a flash message saying that you have used too much of data. That is concurrent kind of a control. Quality control, which is done in factories and in any place, that is a concurrent, because you take samples from in between the production unit and see that whether the sample is in accordance with what is supposed to be done. So that's concurrent control technique. Feedback controls, audit reports, performance appraisals, these are all feedback. Once the work has been accomplished, we are collecting data and seeing if that data is according to the performance measures which have been identified earlier. Past-oriented control methods and future-oriented control methods, it's going to be the same. Past-oriented would mean looking at the past data and seeing whether we are on track. Future-oriented control methods would mean preparing beforehand the control mechanism, preparing beforehand the standards, and then ensuring that the work is done according to those standards. Okay? Let's briefly look at what these. We've already discussed some examples. Like, for example, past-oriented control results are measured after the process. For example, accounting reports, inspections, audits. These are all results which are measured after the process has been completed. And they can be used to plan future behavior or future activities in the organization. Okay, future-oriented control methods are measured during the process or before the process. So warning check, quality checks, warning posts, funds, budgets, these are all future-oriented control methods. Most organizations use both methods of control. I think we are going a little slow today. I have to speed up. So there are certain control techniques which will, if we read, would be very beneficial to us. So let's look at these control techniques one by one. Some of these are old ones, some of these are modern ones. Let us look at some of the old ones now. Budgeting, you already know, is a statement of anticipated results during a designated time period, expressed in financial and non-financial terms. It is equal to setting of standards before the works starts. Okay. The process of budgeting helps top management issue goals and strategies. Low-level managers devise budgets, and these budgets are reviewed and integrated to lower-level budgets, so that everyone, the top-level budget is divided into different budgets at the lower level, so that everyone knows what is available to them, what are the quantitative things that they're supposed to achieve or spend. Another old control technique is standard costing. Standard costing is fixing a cost at the beginning of the process and then ensuring that there is no variation. So if the standard costing says that you are going to, that the organization is going to purchase a machinery part for X money for 1 year, whenever the orders are given, the component which is purchased will be only purchased for X amount. Okay, that is what is meant by standard costing. It is for the purpose of cost reduction and control. Okay, comparison of the actual with the standard is done. Like I said, if we decided that the amount to be spent on a particular component is X, then throughout the process only X amount will be spent. Discrepancy is called variance, and it calls for the control mechanism to kickstart. It's not looking at the process right now. We are going ahead. Responsibility accounting is when we are holding people responsible for some work, and then towards the end of that responsibility period, it is studied as to how much they have been able to achieve. This is more of a qualitative control technique. Financial statements and ratio analysis. This is information about the financial position of the organization. There are a variety of ratios which tell us a variety of dimensions of the organization's standing. So, we can talk of solvency of the organization, we can talk of profitability of the organization, you can talk of liquidity of the organization. Those ratios, financial ratios help us to find out all these aspects as far as the organization is concerned. Basically, it is financial statements only. Break-even analysis, I think we had a discussion, small discussion, even if we've not had a discussion. Break-even analysis is the analysis which helps us to identify the point when we start production, to identify the point from where we will start generating a profit. If you remember, otherwise also, let me just explain. There are certain fixed costs, and there's a lot of cost involved when we start producing, when we start a business unit. So when you start a business unit, the first product that you would make would have to take into account all the costs that has gone into setting the factory, getting the raw material, getting the capital, getting the equipment, getting people. All that becomes the cost component. And when you sell one unit, you are able to only earn a fraction of it. So, and when the production starts and when the production keeps on going, there will be a point when the total sales that you have achieved will be equal to the total cost that you have incurred in setting up the business unit. And after this point, which is called the break-even point, the organization breaks even. And after this point, even if one unit is sold, profit will be generated. So that is called the break-even analysis. And it is an important control mechanism for us to understand, how the cost is breaking out here as far as production is concerned. There's a chart called Gantt chart. Let's look at the figure here, which will tell us as to how it is done. This chart basically helps us breaking down the tasks which have to be accomplished in the various time periods in which they have to be accomplished. So when we view this chart, the actual fact, we'll come to know whether we are behind schedule or whether we are on schedule. And this will help us actually keep track of all the activities in the organization and the time they are taking to finish. All kinds of reports that are generated in the organization, whether be they annual reports or sales reports or any kind of report, they are all control techniques which have been followed for a long, long time. All rules are also control techniques. Personal observation of managers is also a control technique, because this is sometimes they use such. Slide is not showing on screen. Just a moment, please. Okay, someone wants to know the difference between staffing and directing. I'll come to that. In the last 5 minutes, I will do that. I'll explain. Is the slide visible to everyone? Someone has a problem with the slide. Is that problem there with everyone?
The slide is visible.
It's visible. Okay,
It's
so please
visible.
take okay.
No problem with the slide, ma'am.
Okay.
Slide
Okay,
is
so let's come
visible.
to slide is visible. Thank you. Okay, we were talking of the personal observation. We said that because sometimes subjective judgment is required to understand whether things are going as per plan or not. So the personal judgment, personal observation of the manager is also very important. That is also an old technique of control, even today, where people are able to observe and find out whether things are on track. That is called personal observation. New methods of control. There are 2-3 methods that we have to look at. One new method of control is PERT, which is an acronym for Project or Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Okay, this is a complex control tool, and it is basically used for huge projects and building projects or shipping projects, or it can even in the organization if it's a big project. This kind of a technique is used to control the various activities which are going to be conducted. There's a small chart over here which displays how PERT chart is used to understand what is going on. All the tasks, the whole project of the program is divided into the various tasks which have to be accomplished. Then these tasks are put down on a chart like this, wherein every chart, the interrelationship between each task is indicated by arrows, right? This kind of a chart, once it is drawn, after taking into account all the tasks which are supposed to be done, we are in a position to identify how much duration each task is going to take and how they are interrelated with each other, so that everyone who is in charge of a particular task, who's taking care of a particular area of work, knows how their work is related to the other tasks and the other people. They would know how much time it is going to take, and also how they are interrelated with the other. And the project manager would also know whether what is the coordination which is required between these various tasks and the people who are involved with these tasks, and also the duration which is going to be there for the whole project. Okay, so this will help the organization to the manager to understand the overall picture of the project. CPM, which refers to the critical path method, is also a similar kind of a technique, wherein after depicting all the various tasks, I think you're able to see this small picture over here. After depicting all the tasks like in circles, and after working out the interrelationships by means of these arrows, the manager or the person who's in charge of the whole project is in a position to find out the critical path. The critical path would mean the longest path which is taken because of the interrelationships of all these various tasks, and he would know the longest path which is to be taken to finish the project, and that will help these people to judge how much task is required, what relationships are there, how much time is required, what interrelationships are going to be there, and how they are interdependent on each other. Okay, we don't have to go into too many details of these, but then you need to know you have to have a slight understanding as to this is a control mechanism. Now, whatever methods of control you are going to use, whether it is an old method or a new method, there are certain essential elements which have to be there for all the control systems. They have to be timely and forward-looking, in terms of the fact that obviously you are working out for a time frame. You are relating a control mechanism to see what you are going to achieve in the next 5 months, or within a time duration. Obviously it has to be suitable. The work is in one particular area and you are going to collect data on some other area. That is not possible. So it has to be suitable to what work is happening. It has to be objective in the sense it has to be fair. You cannot be having biases there. Comprehensible would mean people need to understand what the control mechanism is, because unless and until people who are working, they know how the control mechanism is working, they would not know on what measure they are going to be evaluated. Flexible, we already said that effective control systems should be flexible. You cannot have rigid systems. Economical is one thing which is always there. We need to spend the least amount of money and get the best result out of a control mechanism. Operational would mean it has to be applicable. It is something which you cannot have a vague and a conceptual kind of a control mechanism. You have to have a system which can be put into place, which can work, which can operate, and which can give you results. It has to be acceptable because people need to comprehend what is going to be measured. Second, people need to actually be able to put it into place. Third, people need to be accepting it in the sense that they should if they do not accept it, then they will resent it and they will not perform accordingly. Okay, A control mechanism should reveal exceptions at strategic points. The control mechanism has to be such that before the problem reaches a stage where it cannot be brought back, the control mechanism should be able to catch the problems. So, like yesterday, we were talking of a sales target. You cannot have for example, if there's an yearly sales target and you have a control mechanism or reporting system which reports to you at the end of the year. So if the report comes to you at the end of the year that you have not been able to achieve the target, there is no use of that report because the year has gone by and you have not been able to make any changes to any of the elements which could have mattered. So a control mechanism should reveal exceptions at strategic point. It may be a 2-month period, at a 6-month period, at an 8-month period. You should have reports, regular reports, which help you identify if there is going to be a problem with the achievement of the target. So that's that. Should not lead to less attention to other aspects of management. Sometimes you can become so controlling and not helping out the people in the organization. So it should not become a hindrance to the other aspects of management. Okay. Right. Now we are left with, is control clear to you? Control is a function which ensures, if you look at the definition, control is a function which ensures that we are going as per plan. We are following the guidelines. We are in line with the policies of the organization. And we are also moving in the direction to achieve the organizational goals. Whatever systems in the organizations ensure these things, they are called control mechanisms. Control mechanisms are not just, it's not necessary for them to be very big analytical tools. Small things like the judgment of the individuals, small things like guidelines, small things like reports, small things like observations, they can all serve as control mechanisms in the organization. The only thing which is required is that there has to be some standard which has to be decided at the beginning of the work, so that everyone in the organization knows what is to be achieved and what is wrong and what is right. Right? That is what control is all about. So do we have any observations about control, or shall we go ahead with the next unit? Are you there?
Yes, we are here. We can go ahead.
Yes, madam, we are here.
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Yes, madam.
yes, Prof. We are here. You
Yes,
can continue.
madam.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You scared me for a second because there
We
was
are
no
here,
response.
madam.
Yeah, there was no response, so I thought that possibly I've lost network. Okay, I have a question, and I like taking questions. Why is it important for a manager to include his employees when setting goals that are part of their performance appraisals? Though most organizations don't. The second part of the question is not clear, but the initial part is clear. So let me, if you could maybe give a small explanation on that, exactly what is it? But the initial part of the question says that why is it important for the manager to include his employees while setting goals that are part of their part of their performance appraisals? Well, we looked at something called management by objectives, if you remember. When you include people, in the setting of their own goals, or when you take their participation in designing goals for, someone wants to join in? When you take their participation It's a very, intelligent thing on the part of the managers. It's a good thing. Why? Because the moment someone is a part of, setting their own targets, the acceptance increases, resistance goes away. The resistance which happens when, some task is allocated to you, you may not, no, you may not agree with it. But when you are actually setting your own target, along with this, one is that you feel important. Second is that you feel that you have been given that much of, freedom to decide your own targets. Though during the course of the discussion, the manager would possibly make you accept something which is, a little hard for you to accomplish. Okay, so this is a part of management. Is that I think, am I clear on that? Is it clear to you? Fred Alvin, you can message it.
Yes,
Okay.
madam, it's clear.
Okay. Let us go to the next unit, which is leadership and motivation. Okay, again, leadership and motivation, what function is it a part of? Because it's not a separate function, it is a part of directing. Okay, now what is leadership? We have come across, a number of people whom we could regard as leaders. What is leadership? Leadership is the ability to secure desirable actions from a group of followers voluntarily without the use of coercion is leadership. It is the ability to persuade others to seek defined objectives enthusiastically. Okay, so who is a leader? A leader who has the power over people, who has individual authority to get a group of people with whom he or she is working to follow his or her instructions is leadership. Now, there's something where we want to distinguish between a leader and a manager. I think we had a small discussion yesterday. Let's come to what is written over here. If we look at an organization, we may possibly be in a position to see a lot of managers. We may possibly be in a position to see a lot of leaders also. But what do we see? Leaders emerge in an organization. And why do leaders emerge? When some people start following others, a leader emerges. So a leader in an organization emerges, but manager is appointed. And what kind of authority does that manager have? The manager has formal authority, conferred authority, which is given to him by virtue of his position in the organization. And what kind of authority does the leader have? The leader has personal authority, which is not given to him by someone, which he has because of his own personal power. The leader has personal power and ability to influence people. Manager has positional power because he's sitting in a particular position. Leader may not have positional power, and manager may or may not have personal power. That's very interesting. So someone who is a leader could also be a manager. That is why he may or he may not have positional power. Manager again might be a manager, but maybe he's not a good leader. So he may or may not have personal power. Leader in an organization will be benefited by mutuality of objectives between leaders and followers. What does that mean? That means that between leaders and followers, there is some kind of a mutual objective because of which they are close to each other. And the leader is benefited. And the followers are obviously possibly benefited. Mutuality of objectives may not happen in the case of manager, and there could be a clash of objectives. What does that mean? That means that in the relationship between manager and his subordinates, objectives might help the manager, but possibly the team or the subordinate would not want to achieve those objectives. So they could be clashing. This kind of clashing is not there as far as leader and followers are concerned. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is this, that managers have to be trained, managers have to be developed to have both positional power and personal power. Only then managers will be effective. Okay, let's go ahead. What are the characteristics of leadership? The characteristics of leadership are, so now we are not actually looking at the manager. We are not looking at the managerial aspect. We are looking at the leadership aspect of the organization, which could possibly clash with the managerial aspect. Okay, characteristics of leadership. There, we discussed it earlier also. Mutual interest between leader and follower. They would want to work towards something because they are both going to benefit. Or at least the follower is definitely going to benefit and the leader is helping him or her out. There is unequal distribution of authority. Who has more authority? The leader has more authority. Leaders can influence their followers in addition to being able to give directions or advice. What does that mean? That means that they are not people who are just in giving directions or advice. They can influence, they can change their mindset, their attitudes. Okay, so leaders have a lot of influence on their followers. Now, the next topic that we need to look at is leadership styles. Why do we need to look at leadership styles? Because leadership styles, when adopted by the managers in the organization, can be fruitful or not fruitful. And also, certain leadership styles are suitable to certain situations. Certain other leadership styles are suitable to other situations. And it is not necessary that any one kind of leadership style is good or beneficial for the organizations. In some cases, a leadership style which is not very popular among the followers is suitable in a situation. A simple example could be, if there's some kind of a catastrophe, you will not sit down, the manager will not sit down and discuss with his subordinate as to what is to be done. He will have to take his own decisions and immediately give orders to deal with that catastrophe. Okay. Now, what kind of leadership styles do we have? One leadership style is called autocratic. You must all be aware as to what an autocracy, is. Here, the leader is authoritarian. What does he say? He says, do this or else I'm going to do this. Some kind of. Another form of autocratic leadership is paternalistic, where the leader actually wants the followers to follow what he's saying, and do what he's saying, but uses a different approach and, kind of instigates them to do what the leader is saying. This style is useful when employees are low in tolerance for ambiguity, insecure, with freedom, and indecisive. What does that mean? These different leadership styles, like I said, are suitable for different situations. So when people are not intelligent enough, bold enough, strong enough to take decisions on their own, when people are easily confused, when people are insecure, when they have to stand alone, in situations like this, the manager or the leader has to give them clear-cut instructions, has to tell them what to do very clearly without any change. Okay, so that is what we mean when we say that when employees are low in tolerance for ambiguity, because they cannot tolerate ambiguity, when they are insecure with freedom and indecisive, in that cases, autocratic leadership is useful. What are the advantages? It increases the efficiency because the employees or the followers just have to be told what to do and they have to do it simple. It saves time because there's no discussion, very clear instructions to be followed. Gets quick results also. And they are especially, it's a very good tool, very good style in crisis situations. Negatives: no communication, no feedback, no input from the followers. Misunderstandings can happen since there is no feedback. Okay, so that is an autocratic style of leadership. Resentment among subordinates is also one. Generally, when during the course of this relationship, some of the subordinates become a little independent. They grow and they become more, they want a little more freedom. If that thing starts developing in the followers, then some kind of resentment can originate. The next type of leadership style is democratic or participative, wherein the leader accepts responsibility for goal setting and achievement after some kind of participation from the subordinates. Freedom for action is given to the subordinates. They're given some kind of freedom to achieve the goals. Entire group is involved in goal setting and achievement and implementation. And the leader shows concern for people. That is the very reason why the leader is actually discussing and allowing the followers to participate in the decision making. Generally, it is a very advantageous kind of a style because of participation from the subordinates. Participation leads to better performance, and participation and better performance lead to acceptance by the subordinates. Better ideas, suggestions, and talent comes into the foray. People grow and rise in the organization because they're getting freedom to talk, discuss, grow. It takes more time. As far as negatives are concerned, it takes more time. Sometimes it can lead to loss of control. And some leaders can use it to avoid responsibility. Since they don't have their own ideas, they can involve their team into the participation discussions and then, pull in together and then use it as their own ideas. Conditions which make a democratic leader successful. Some things make a democratic leader successful. Atmosphere of approval from the superiors. If the superiors allow, the democratic leader can become successful. If the superiors are bossy and authoritarian, the immediate leader cannot be a democratic leader. When there is proper knowledge with the people who are being led and also with the leader, a democratic leadership style is good. If discipline is consistent, if there's no indiscipline, that means when individuals are balanced, then the democratic leader is a successful leader. And then there is right to appeal. What does right to appeal mean? People should have the freedom to bring points which are not acceptable to them. In that cases, if this kind of freedom is there, then the democratic leader can be successful. Free rein leadership style is an extreme end of democratic leader, wherein the leader exercises no control at all, provides all information, material, facilities, and the followers are given the freedom to accomplish the objectives. Generally successful only at the top levels and generally successful only when individuals are acclimatized to the culture of the organization, they understand the objectives of the organization, they know the working of the organization, and they are very, you know, into the organization. They know exactly what is expected of them. Only in that case, the free rein leadership style works. Okay. Now, the next important subtopic as far as leadership is concerned is the leadership theories or approaches. What are the leadership theories or approaches all about? These theories are basically explanations as to how does a leader come into how does a leader become a leader, what are the approaches that a leader has, what are the influences that a leader on a leader. All these theories are explanations, different theories are explanations to different aspects of leadership. Majorly how leadership comes into formation. Traits theory. Are you with me?
Madam.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Thank you. Thank you. What are the what is the traits approach? This is an old theory which has been in existence for quite some time, and this was the first explanation as to how does a leader become a leader. This theory states that there are some personal abilities or attributes in a leader because of which he or she becomes a leader. And these attributes are present in all successful leaders, and generally they are there as a part of their personalities. So some of these traits are objectivity, good communication skills, teaching ability, emotional stability, physical mental energy, technological know-how, competence, moral courage, etc., etc., etc. Right? So this theory believes that these attributes are already present there in an individual. Some of these are displayed by the individual who is a leader. Some of these have a potential to come out in the open in certain circumstances, but still, majorly they are present in the personality of the leader. Okay, there is one criticism of this theory. The criticism is that some leaders sometimes they don't display these traits, but under certain circumstances, they become great leaders. So it is not necessary that these traits cannot be developed. The criticism says that it's not necessary that these abilities or personal attributes are present there in an individual always. Sometimes under certain circumstances, under after some experiences, or because of the development of an individual, some of these abilities develop in an individual and that person can become a leader. Contingency theory, like the contingency theory which was there in the management theories, that no best style of leadership can be successful under all conditions. Effective leaders should analyze situations and then take decisions. So sometimes they may have to have an authoritarian approach, sometimes they need to have participative approach, and sometimes if they feel, they can leave the subordinates with the goals and give them the freedom to achieve the goals. That's the contingency theory. More detailed theories coming up. One important theory is called Fiedler's theory. According to this model, the effectiveness of leadership depends upon the situational favorableness. Situational favorableness, how favorable the situation is. And the situation is favorable when there are three factors: leader-member relations. What do you mean by leader-member relations? When the leader and the member have good relations, or whether their relations are good or bad. The task structure means whether the task is simple or complex. And positional power of the leader would mean if the leader is in a position to do certain positive or negative things which can affect or influence the subordinate. So leadership depends on situational favorableness. Situational favorableness depends on leader-member relations, the task structure, and the positional power. So when is the leader effective? The leader is effective, more effective, when the leader-member relationships are good. The first point. He is also effective when the task is highly structured. What do you mean by highly structured? Means there is no confusion. Everything is very clear cut. Everything is very much planned. If the task or the duties or the activities are like that, then the leader is effective. Why? Because he does not have to deal with any confusion. Okay? Similarly, when the leader has high positional power, then he is very effective. What do you mean by high positional power? When he has the power to hire people, to fire people, to promote people, to transfer people, increase or decrease their salary, give them incentives, give them benefits. So if the followers feel that our leaders has all that power, then obviously they would listen to what the leader is going to say. Okay? So in those cases, the leader will be effective. Is this theory clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The second theory is managerial grid theory, wherein a grid is constructed between two parameters. One is concern for production, that means productivity, and concern for people. The combination of these two results in different kind of leaders. Okay? There's a figure in front of you. So or you can say concern for production is concern for work. So there could be two kinds of concern. One is a person is only concerned about work to various degrees, and a person is or a leader is concerned about people. So there can be four parts of this grid. Let's look at the task management grid part. When the concern for work is very high in a leader, that means he or she is concerned about getting the work done, is achieving objectives at whatever cost. So the concern for work is very high and concern for people is very low. That leader will be a task management leader. Would mean that person will not be concerned about what is happening with the people or the employees. He or she will only be concerned about getting the result. Very tough. When the leader has low concern for work and low concern for people also, that kind of a leader is useless, because neither that leader will get the work done properly, neither that person will be popular with his or her employees. The only thing that person would do is leave the work to the employees and do something else. So that leadership style is very not useful for anyone. When the concern for work is high and the concern for we'll come to that later. When the concern for work is low and concern for people is very high on a point scale of 9, that kind of a leader is called country club leader, because that leader will not be concerned about achieving the work goals. That person possibly will be very popular with his employees because he does not pressurize them for work. That kind of a leader is also not very healthy for the organization. Lastly, there is a grid with both points 9. This kind of a leader is very high in concern for production and work, is very high also in concern for people. That kind of a leader will be the best leader in the organization because he would know how to get the work done, how to achieve targets, and also how to keep his or her subordinates happy. Right? So the managerial grid theory talks about two aspects of a leader in terms of concern for people and concern for production. And the leader who is concerned both for work and both for people is going to be a successful leader. Another theory, Hershey and Blanchard model, again is a very important theory. According to this model, the relationship between the manager and the subordinate moves through 4 phases in the organization as the subordinate develops and matures. So when when a person enters an organization, he will enter in a different phase. As he grows in the organization, as he gains experience, gains knowledge, gets devoted, becomes more devoted to the organization, and becomes more committed to the goals of the organization, he will change from one phase to another. This is what the Hershey and Blanchard model says. So in the initial phase, when the subordinate enters the organization, he needs instructions about the job, the organizational rules and procedures. High task orientation is required by the leader, and low in relationship is required. What does that mean? You relate it with the managerial grid model upstairs, above this. High task orientation would mean he will have to be kept under pressure for work. Low in relationship means not much concern needs to be shown. Why? Because the employee needs to be able to perform, and the subordinate also needs to be able to acclimatize with the environment. As the subordinate matures, he comes into the second phase where trust increases. The relationship between the leader and the subordinate can become high in relationship because now the leader knows that this employee is going to be there with the organization. He can be trusted, but still high on task, but still he is kept under pressure so that he works hard. As time passes, the third phase comes in where the subordinate is expected to grow in maturity. He will himself have a high task orientation, so the leader need not be after the task. But the leader needs to be supportive and considerate enough so that the subordinate's commitment towards the goals of the organization becomes more strong. In the final phase, the subordinate is highly motivated, mature, and self-directing. So manager can have, or the leadership style which can be adopted is low in both task and relationship. So the leader might not give too many instructions about the work, might not also show too much of concern because now the employee is quite settled in the organization and he does not need instructions in both the cases. Okay. How much work is there? Let me see, and then we'll theory X, theory Y, and forces. These are some very important things actually I wanted to, just a moment. Here, we are in Robert J. House's path goal theory. Can we continue for another 15 minutes or so? If you say yes. But I don't want people to leave the meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay. Right, let's come to the next theory, which is Robert J. House's path. Sorry, I couldn't get that. Okay. Robert J. House's path goal theory. According to this theory, there are 4 types of leadership behavior: directive, supportive, achievement oriented, and participative. It's a variation of the earlier theories or whatever we've learned as far as leadership is concerned. The directive leader lets the subordinate know what is expected of them, gives them specific guidance on what and how, schedules the work, maintains definite standards of performance, and asks people to follow definite rules. What kind of a leader is he? If you relate, you can relate it to the authoritarian leader, but the directive leader is basically more balanced. Supportive leader is friendly, approachable, shows concern for the status and well-being of subordinates, according to this theory. Achievement-oriented leader sets challenging goals, has confidence in subordinates, and emphasizes excellence. And participative leader is always deciding things on the basis of consultation with subordinates. These 4 styles of leadership will depend on the subordinate's goal attractiveness, which in turn depends on the personality factors like locus of control, perceptions, and their ability, about their ability. What does this mean? This means that how important is it for the subordinate to achieve a goal? The leadership style will vary according to that. Okay? Out of these 4, which do you think is the best leadership style? The achievement oriented one, because it's this more balanced type of leadership style. Okay? Now, someone that day was asking me about theory X and theory Y. There's a shortcut to remembering which theory is what. So theory X means wrong, and if you want to understand it that way, and theory Y means yes. Okay? So what is this theory X and theory Y? This is a set of beliefs that leaders have about people. And because of those set of beliefs, these leadership style changes. So according to theory X, most men resist work and are lazy. Therefore, they must be externally motivated. The objectives of men are in conflict with the objectives of organization. Therefore, they can never be trusted with anything, and they have to be motivated, coerced, controlled, pushed into doing things. They only want money. They are motivated by economic incentives and want to avoid responsibilities. So a leader who believes in theory X will be an authoritarian leader. Okay? Will not trust people and will always believe that they have to be pushed into doing things. Theory Y. Theory Y believes that for most men, work comes easily and naturally. They are capable of directing and controlling their own work in achieving organizational objectives. Men have a reason other than money for working. They also seek responsibility. And they are capable of demonstrating creativity and intellectual ability. So a manager who believes in theory Y will value people, will adopt a democratic approach, and will give people freedom to work. That is what theory Y says. Right? Now, this brings us to the end of the theories of leadership. There are other theories of leadership also. But these are the main theories of leadership which we have covered. Now, whether or not a leader will become effective, because leadership needs to be effective if leaders need to get work done in the organization. So effective leadership is very important, and it is very important for us to understand how leadership becomes effective. So there are forces which determine leadership. One force is forces in the leader. The nature of the leader, his or her attitude, values, knowledge, skills, communication power, emotional balance, all these have been developing since his childhood, or they are there since his birth. They are in his personality, and they are an important factor in making him or her effective. There's another thing, his assumptions about man. What does it mean? We mean that a leader, what is his belief? Does he believe in theory X or does he believe in theory Y? That also makes him effective or ineffective. Forces and subordinates. Subordinates' knowledge, skill, need for independence, acceptance of authority, tolerance for ambiguity and other expectations. These also influence the effectiveness of the leader. If subordinates have knowledge and skill, a leader is effective. If they need more independent, the authoritarian leader will not be good for them. If they accept authority, the authoritarian leadership will be working for them. If they have tolerance for ambiguity, they would want to use their freedom. So authoritarian leader will not be good. So forces in the leader, forces in the subordinate, forces in situations also. Leadership style of leaders of the leader. That means that if a participative leader believes in participation, but his boss is an authoritarian boss, it will not work. Because he will always be under pressure and that participation style cannot be implemented by him. The demand of the jobs, if the job is very highly volatile, if the job is very demanding and pressurizing, there is time pressure, then participative style of leadership will not be able to work. Forces in the organization system. If the organization is very structured, division of work is very clear, participative can work. Otherwise, if there are confusing structure, confusing technology, confusing work, then authoritarian leadership is important. Will be more successful. So there are four kinds of forces: the forces in the leader, forces in subordinate, forces in situations, and forces in the organization systems, which will ensure what kind of leadership style is to be adopted by the leader. I think we will stop here today, and because if we start with motivation, it will take some time for us to complete it. But I would request you to give feedback on what we have covered today. You can put it on the in the chat box. Let me see. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box right now. It's okay, Mahadevan, you can leave. He has to go to work. So tomorrow we will look at the remaining part of this unit, which is motivation, which is a very important and a very interesting topic too. And I would expect you again, as I said, to be on time and also come with queries. Okay, there's a question which says, what differentiates successful leader with an effective one? Now, an effective leader will be able to achieve. There's not much of a distinction. But an effective leader, if you look at from one point of view, effective leader is one who's able to achieve the results, fulfill the responsibilities which have been allocated to him, and achieve the goals, whatever he was supposed to achieve. But a successful leader would be one who is very popular. One part is he's able to achieve his results. Second, he's also very popular and very accepted and very regarded by the subordinates with whom he is working. Okay, is that clear? Right then, so we would definitely even though I joined the lecture very late, but the lecture, okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? I'm waiting for the questions so that in case, definitely I'll share the material with you. As I said, the content is definitely too much. The reason being that we have to cover each and everything. I would not like to leave any part untouched within the time frame, within the constraints of that we have as far as time is concerned. We have to cover a lot of content in a limited time. About the trait approach, okay, the trait approach believes that leaders are not made, they are born. Okay, that means that they are born, they have these inbuilt qualities within them because of which they become leaders, and others who are not having these qualities cannot become leaders. So that is not a very good proposition actually. So that is the criticism of the trait theory, that sometimes even when people have not had the opportunity to show leadership in their earlier life, certain point of time they may develop because of some experiences that they have, or some education or some training that they have. So the trait theory definitely is true to some extent, but not completely true. Okay, so no questions? Good enough. So we'll meet tomorrow then. And I would request you, as I said, to please come on time, join the meeting on time, and come with some queries if you have any. Right then? See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Someone has raised the hand. Do you want to ask something? Thank you, Isaac, for being the co-host and helping me out with admitting the students.
You're
Thank you.
welcome,
Have a
ma'am.
good day.
Thank you.